Hi, I'm Cher Safran with Share Wisdom Network and host of the Nautilus Book Awards Author Spotlight Series. Now celebrating 20 years of honoring better books for a better world, Nautilus Book Awards continues this important mission forward to spotlight visionary books that co-create a better world and more positive future. The Nautilus Awards embraces books from a wide spectrum of the publishing industry, which radiate hope and wisdom, inspiring and connecting our lives as individuals, communities, and planetary citizens. This is a vast and crucial conversation now more than ever. The Author Spotlight Series offers opportunity to increase the volume and visibility of the authors' voices as found in these empowering Nautilus award-winning books. Author Patricia Lemer is with us here today sharing insights from her Nautilus award-winning book, Outsmarting Autism, which won the Silver Award in the parenting category. So I'm delighted to introduce Patricia to you. Patricia Lemer has practiced as a licensed professional counselor and an educational diagnostician since 1969. She was co-founder and executive director of the nonprofit Developmental Delay Resources, or DDR, for 20 years. She holds a Master's of Education in Counseling from Boston College and a Master's in Business from Johns Hopkins University. And from 2012 to 2014, she consulted in Kuwait to establish a center for young adults with autism. Patricia is the author of 3 books on managing, healing, and preventing autism. Her 3rd book, the Nautilus Award-winning Outsmarting Autism, has also earned highest praise from the Library Journal. Welcome, Patricia. It is so wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, you have just had an amazing life, and I'm so grateful to you for the years that you have dedicated to be an advocate for those living with autism and those family members who have a loved one living with autism. And I have to say, 20 years ago, I had my first known encounter with someone with autism, but I'm embarrassed to say I had no idea what autism was. And reading your book, I have to say, it is a treasure trove for those of us who need more information, even just the general public, but especially parents and educators and other healthcare professionals. It's just a phenomenal book. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You said it was 50 years in the making, so I really appreciate you sharing all of your
50
wisdom.
years of collecting information and knowledge and then downloading it, downloading my brain into this book.
Well, thank you for doing that. And so here's the question. Is autism in fact increasing, or does it just seem to be increasing?
It's a great question. I think there are more people who are aware of it. Our awareness of it has increased, and definitely autism itself has increased. And the way we know that is that other than Temple Grandin, who is probably the most famous individual with autism, there are very few adults with autism over the age of 50. So it's improbable or even close to impossible that there would be some hiding somewhere in somebody's attic or basement. And these individuals just don't exist. They never existed until the late 80s, early 90s in great numbers. And the statistics from the CDC itself shows that it was 1 in 10,000 in the 70s when I first got started, and is now considered about 1 in 56.
Those are startling statistics.
It is startling and terrifying if you're a new parent.
What causes autism? Do we even know?
It's a very complicated question that you're asking, and I'm going to read a little section of my book that talks about what causes autism. And the answer to that is everything. Everything bad that's out there. It's stressors. And there are genetic stressors, there's environmental stressors, there's educational stressors, there's psychological stressors, there are every kind of stressor that you can imagine. And this coronavirus that we are living through today we're just going to see what kind of stressor this is on anyone who might be pregnant during this time or have a child during this time. And this child is dealing with stressed out parents who can't leave home and are so afraid of this virus.
Wow. Please do read from your book now.
So let's see here. Every child with autism and an autism spectrum diagnosis deserves and requires a set of basic principles to manage their healing process. Many of these principles are good for anyone interested in recovering good health, and the general principles form a strong, unbendable foundation for disease-free living. They are appropriate no matter whether the diagnosis is mild, moderate, or severe on the spectrum, and whether that autism is even a degenerative disease of modern society. From that diagnosis, each child needs and deserves a customized therapy plan tailored to that individual's unique needs. And each plan is based on his history and must be monitored by a qualified health professional or case manager who looks at what that history contains. This book's model provides a hierarchy of therapies, and it is based, unlike some other books, on the premise that those with autism are physically sick. Autism didn't just happen overnight. It is not a mystery. It took time for individual stressors and what we call load factors from a variety of sources to accumulate, overload, and overwhelm their bodies. So in order for you to outsmart autism, I guide you through 5 steps, which each has underlying parts in my book. Step 1 is take away the bad stuff and add back the good stuff. Number 2 is to correct foundational issues in structure and in reflex integration. Number 3 is to address sensory problems. And only when we get to number 4 do we focus on what parents value most, which is speech and language, all kinds of communicating, interacting, and learning. And the 5th step of my book is on planning for the future, for those who are young adults with autism and those who are considering getting pregnant and having babies so that they don't have autism.
Like I said, a treasure trove.
Thank you.
Some people have talked about eliminating autism or completely healing autism. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's sort of a double-edged question. If you're a parent of a severely affected child, you want to heal your child. If your child has meltdowns and can't be left 24/7, all you can think about is how to normalize that child's behavior. And that's one end of the spectrum. And I don't think any of those families would deny that they want healing. It doesn't mean that they don't love their children. It means that living with that kind of stress that those children put on the whole family's situation is unbearable. At the other end of the spectrum are high-functioning individuals with an autism diagnosis. And the original diagnosis of some of those individuals was Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer considered a true diagnosis. And some of those individuals who hold jobs, who are independent, and have some social and maybe some communication issues are saying, I don't want you to heal me. I don't need healing. I'm fine just the way I am. And so at that end of the spectrum, we have to respect their wishes and their desires not to be healed. And if they have a specific problem, such as I have no friends, or I'd like to get married, or I can't hold a job, then we can help them manage the aspects of their disability that prevents them from achieving their goals.
I love that it's not a one size fits all for you.
And it really isn't.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of a cliche saying that when you've seen one individual with autism, you've seen one individual with autism.
That's perfect.
They are as unique as you and I are. And you cannot make generalities about people with autism. They all got there in a different way. They are as unique as fingerprints. And that's what's made my career so much fun and so exciting. I used to be a bridge player, and anybody who plays cards with 52 cards, you think, well, that's not very many cards. And there are more than 52 factors in autism. So those 52 cards can fall how many different ways. You never get the same hand. And you never get the same hand when you're looking at an individual with autism and I'm trying to diagnose what is the best way to attack this situation. Where do you start? How do you heal? What is primary? How do you prioritize your actions and your money and your time?
I was going to ask you, what's the misconception about autism? And I think you've just answered it. Everyone is unique, and there is a spectrum, and each individual, like you said, deserves a unique understanding of who they are. And the families need the support as they require. So where do parents go for real help? Certainly your book. And
well, my book's been called the Bible of autism, and I love that because, so many people do depend on their Bible for guidance. And this book is a guidance from preconception through adulthood. And this version of Outsmarting Autism is actually an updated and expanded version of my second book, which was written in 2014. And when I wrote that and downloaded my brain into that, I was certain that I was done. But then things happened, and they continue to happen. And with the exciting technology and our understanding of things like the microbiome, which is a new word in our language, which means the critters that we share our bodies with who live in our gut. We have about 2 to 3 pounds of non-human organisms that share our space. And so, in fact, we are only 10% human because there are 10 times as many cells of our microbiome as are cells of our own genetic makeup. And so, who are those guys we're sharing our space with? And this coronavirus and a million other viruses and bacteria who haven't even been cataloged yet are part of our space. And we all have to live symbiotically to make up a healthy person. And this idea of a microbiome wasn't even in existence. That word wasn't even in existence when I wrote my previous version of this book. So I had to write another book. And the genetic makeup of our bodies was also being mapped. And so it requires us to look at what is our genetic susceptibility of having autism or having any degenerative or inflammatory autoimmune disease. We have to look at what is the terrain. It is about terrain. We are all being exposed to the same bugs out there, to the same toxins, to the same heavy metals, to the same chemicals, but not everybody gets sick, and not every baby gets autism. So this is what total load is. It's your own unique threshold where everything that you add, every stressor, puts you closer and closer to your personal threshold. And then something puts you above, and then you have a diagnosis. So here's mild autism, moderate autism, and severe autism is above, way above. And as we heal, we just peel away layer by layer by layer. So we end up with less severe symptoms than we started out with up here.
Well, I am very grateful, and I know the families and loved ones and those living with autism are very grateful that you have shared this wisdom and continue to share as we learn more about who we are as human beings, and that you bring such compassion to the outsmarting of autism. So thank you so much, Patricia, for touching our hearts.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, and thank you, Nautilus Books, for my award. I'm just thrilled with this recognition because it really helps me feel that I have to keep going, and I'm never done. This is an epidemic, and unfortunately, it's not going away.
That's right. And I appreciate you staying in and advocating and guiding us all. So thank you.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Nautilus Awards team, thank you all.